just state your name for the record, and we'll take it from there.
Mr. Chair, just for the record, this is a public hearing on the T-bed formation, not
Thank
just
you.
public comment.
So we will open up the public hearing officially.
Can I be the first public participant? Thank you, ma'am. I have a slide deck, as my predecessor had. Megan said I'm not permitted to project it. Is that correct? Okay. Have you got, you're nice enough to make copies? Yes. I just have one. No, I haven't. It's one slide is in color.
We put it in color.
Okay. Terrific. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm a cert holder. My name is Henry Stockman. I've had a house in Tahoe City for 30 years. And I would like the Board of Supervisors to think about the word Trinity. When I say the word Trinity, what comes to mind? Well, in religion, it's Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. In healthcare, it's patients, providers, and payers. And in this circumstance, it's Placer County, guests, and lodging operators. And the NLTTBID is a hammer against that entire trinity. And I'm going to tell you why. It's a hammer to Placer County. It deprives Placer of $6 million. It ends up wiping out TOT because it is the marginal cost that will drive out short-term rental activity. It forces more short-term renting, thereby degrading neighborhoods. It puts non-government employees in charge, and it allows non-government employees to tax. Now, this lady has said this isn't a tax. It is a tax. Now, the hammer to lodging operators. It cuts their net income, this innocuous term, 2% of revenues. Well, let's assume, well, if you are Hyatt and Marriott and Wyndham and you know, the big hotels, they're operating at EBITDA margins of about 22%. So a 2% tax on revenue hits their net income, their EBITDA, by about 10%. But if you're a small person with a house, that a cert holder that's been doing it for years, your EBITDA margin is 5%. Why? Because of Airbnb. The operating expenses for a small operator and a big operator as a percentage of revenue are fixed if your RevPAR is equivalent. For instance, in the place I've got, my RevPAR is equivalent. I do $100 per available room. So my operating expenses run at 78%. So does Wyndham and Marriott's and all the big guys. What they don't have to pay is Airbnb to get the census. So that adds another 17%, which means my EBITDA margin is 5%, 4% after tax, which means this innocuous 2% hits my net income 50%. Do you nice folks understand that math? Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
And
that's a very important thing, sir, because...
We typically get 3 minutes for testimony, too, so if you could move on with your presentation.
Okay. Now, it's also a hammer to the guests. It increases lodging expenses at its most contested piece, middleman fees. They go up 10%. I want to go through the fallacies of what's been presented. Just pass the levy on to guests. That's impossible. The demand curve in economics has a negative slope. When prices go up, demand goes down. Now, if you want to listen to the prior presentation instead of John Maynard Keynes and Paul Samuelson, that's your election. But you can't pass it on. It diminishes your standing on Airbnb because of the value quotient and all that stuff. So that's one huge fallacy. This is very important. The NLTTBID will get operators more revenue with increased marketing. Nonsense. Airbnb and VRBO get My Place 16,000 page views a year. That's a real number. Multiply that by 100 houses, 100 short people with cert revenues. We're looking at millions of page views. They've sort of buried themselves by emphasizing that a bunch of their budget is going to go into marketing. We don't need marketing. The BIDs that existed previously and helped people get marketing existed before Airbnb, which is a 3-year-old phenomenon. So, this marketing element is absolutely unnecessary. It's redundant. And most of the cert holders are already paying a fortune to Airbnb for marketing. Added revenue has to be enormous. If you're operating at an EBITDA margin of 5%, after tax 4%, and you cut it in half, the short-term rental holders would have to, the small fries would have to double their revenue. If you're doing 30 grand a year, you'd have to do 60 grand to break even. It's just the math. Finally, the NLTTBID will improve transportation. Nonsense. TART is ubiquitous, it's reliable, it's safe, and it's free. No one wins in this project except this NLTTBID, which for someone who's renting out their place for, I don't know, $30,000 a year adds up over a 5-year period to $3 grand. So are the short-term rental holders supposed to take $3 grand out of their pockets and put it into the pockets of this thing? I don't think so. So what I want to do is, what I hope this presentation has done is return us to equilibrium and to the Trinity and not to weaken it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there other people who wish to address the board on this issue?
Good afternoon. Supervisor Waygan, Board of Supervisors, Jeffrey Hintz, CEO, North Lake Tahoe Resort Association. And again, wanted to thank all of us in this room that have been so supportive of the Tourism Business Improvement District and getting us to the finish line. I will say a few things about the gentleman who spoke just a minute ago on governance. As long as that I've been in this industry and part of TBIDS and other destinations, I can testify that I have not seen a better governance program for these TBID funds. The governance, as Aaron presented earlier this afternoon, certainly outlines not only from the NLTRA TBID governance side, but the additional committees that govern these funds. These funds are governed by the business community and determined whether it be allocated and spent by the business community, as they were also approved. And this TBID was approved in majority by this business community. One note about marketing. I think it's important to know, and the fact is that we are not increasing marketing with the TBID. Just to go on record again, we are not increasing marketing and advertising with this TBID. We are replacing the existing amount, and as Aaron presented wonderfully, the marketing that we do put in the marketplace is substantially lower than the competitors that we go ahead day to day. One additional thing important about the marketing that I would like to clarify is the marketing that we do and we will be doing in the months and years ahead. Marketing includes communication, and we're going to be steering more funds into the communication of how we influence visitor behavior in North Lake Tahoe, which all ties into the big picture of the TBID and this TOT program. So we're very excited about that, and we believe it's important to make sure that goes on record. We feel strongly that the opportunity that we have in front of us with the TOT fund staying in North Lake Tahoe at $4.1 million that will be allocated to transportation, and traffic and workforce housing, which is a huge issue and growing daily with our business community and business owners. For us to have that opportunity to have those funds stay in North Lake Tahoe and be directed towards programs like that is momentous, because that doesn't happen in other destinations and other communities. And so our business community, that was a big reason that we gained so much support for this T-bid and gained the signatures that we did because of that program. So I'm happy to also answer any questions that we have, knowing that we are the organization that we'll be putting forth the T-bid.
Yeah, thank you. And Cindy does have some questions now.
I did. And to Mr. Stockman's point, the marketing you're doing, is it specific to properties? Is it more about the destination? In other words, when people go, no, I'm asking Mr. Hentz and referring to your comments. Mr. Stockman made some points that his his short-term rental gets a lot of visitation through Airbnb and VRBO, which you don't influence. But how does somebody pick a destination they want to go to? What kind of efforts are you putting in that regard?
Supervisor Gustafson, that's a great question. It's a question that has been asked for decades by many of the lodging community to a DMO or a CVB. And best way I can answer that is a destination marketing organization like us, CVB. We brand the destination. We drive impressions and drive folks' interest to look and consider our destination. And then that is driven into a website or into a visitor guide, and then distributed out to the various product assets, tourism assets, and lodging assets. So we don't specifically brand or market to one specific property or sector of a lodging. We brand the destination and then what's within that destination and drive people into those particular assets. And that has been going on for decades, and it's worked extremely well because the DMOs have been around for a long time, and they've successfully modeled that particular strategy, of which we have as well.
And turn that off. Sorry about that. We've had a number of other comments similarly to individual properties, whether it's a small motel owner or lodge owner, similar comments that additional marketing isn't needed. But when we look at that chart that Aaron provided us with the competitive marketplace, obviously we're being outspent and people have choices on where they spend their time. But you have shifted some of those programs to more flight destinations. Is that correct?
We have, and what we try to do, Supervisor Gustafson, is to cultivate longer stays and folks who spend more funds in that destination. And that's where a lot of our continued growth is going, is to cultivate more markets that folks fly in who have a propensity to stay beyond the 2.5 average stay that many destinations, including ours, experiences. Folks who fly in. So we cultivate markets, or we'll be cultivating markets once we get through this pandemic, to start bringing in folks who stay longer, spend more, and experience more of the destination without just visiting for a day or two. Because as Aaron showed, our day visitor is a very high number when you compare it to other destinations around the country, and that high number has an impact in our community, of which the T-bid is addressing.
Yes, for all my years living there, the weekend warriors, the weekend business, there's no doubt we've been at capacity, if not beyond capacity. It's really the midweek that almost all of our lodging has vacancy in it at a variety of times during the year.
And another thing, if I could just add to your comment, Supervisor Gustafson, another area that we also work hard and will continue to cultivate is to drive more midweek business, because that's an area where we need to continue to improve as all destinations struggle around the world, around the country, to fill their midweek. Everybody wants to be a weekend warrior, but our destination, we feel when we do cultivate more business that's a longer haul flight into our destination, they're going to solve that problem of filling our midweek, because they'll be here for 5 days versus 2.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. So no further questions at this point.
Thanks.
So Megan, do we want
to? Ellie, please unmute your mic and give your comments.
Ellie Waller, 3 minutes is insufficient for the 4 items on this one agenda item. The management district plan needs to be updated and not approved today. There are many errors if you read my comments. This is an unacceptable practice to provide an inaccurate list. A Spanish version should have been produced. The staff in charge of the list should have reached out to the non-responders and find out why they didn't sign and submit a petition in favor or against, as all must be polled. This can easily be accomplished when updating the list to add columns showing yes or no response. The public should be privy to how the payers voted for full disclosure and transparency. The MDP is not ready for prime time. Why hurry? When will the list be cleaned up? The most recent change was approximately 5,300 businesses listed down to 4,908. There is good reason for public suspicion when the county and the Resort Association have been asked. 1, provide evidence of signed petitions which they refuse to supply. Verbal assurance is not enough. 2, show evidence of the relative expected percentages splits by category, retail, lodging, services, restaurants, etc. I was told this would be available for the March 9th meeting. It was not in the packet for public review. 3, they refused to wait 2 weeks to have the item heard in Tahoe. Do not approve the MDP until it's corrected and bring it back at the March 30 meeting in Tahoe or at a special meeting for this and other Tahoe items. 4, TBID doesn't have its own agenda item. Being commingled with the County and Resort Association TOG exchange is confusing. The agenda is huge for the 9th, and it makes it appear the county is trying to minimize a tax that doesn't have to be voted on, called an assessment. The key differences between the TBID, other benefited districts, is funds raised are returned to the private nonprofit corporation governing the district. The proposed governance of this has heavily compromised seats of profits like Altera 3 seats, Vail 3 seats, and doesn't represent the entire business district values. The Zone 1 versus Zone 2 percentage designation, where Altera and Vail, multi-million-dollar corporations, are paying less and should be paying equal to the little guys in Lake Tahoe, stating they're paying for other TBIDs or fees when they can easily afford the 2% hit is not good enough reason for 1% versus 2% for lodging, especially when it's continually stated that the average local will pay annually a TBID fee of only $30 for retail and other items. I just have 2 more things to make statements about item D. How many participants in the survey mentioned about TOTN, sales tax, actually participated? How many were in basin? How many were out basin? And just a funny statement, the proposal for $450,000 contribution to microtransit, just because you utilize the microtransit doesn't mean you're not going to be sitting in traffic. You're just not going to be driving. Thank you.
Anne, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments.
Good afternoon. Yeah, this is really feeling really odd. It's like, I know Cindy's very invested in this, but like she's selling it. You get your presentation in, then you get Jeffrey Henson, you get Cindy asking leading questions and answering that way. It's really, it's not giving the, we don't even get, it doesn't even deserve an agenda. They would have you believe that everybody's on board with this, but I've in just 2 months gotten all these letters. Cedar Glen Lodge, no. Sole domain, there was no vote. The residents need more time to review. If this one was good, I've heard a lot of dumb ideas over the past decade, but this one takes the cake. It's just poorly conceived and rushed. Put this to a vote if it's so popular. Let people take a poll. It's not hard to do anymore. Anyway, the main thing is this is all going to be run by the big resorts and have control of all this money. It's already shown by the fact that the big resorts areas will pay 1% and Lake Tahoe will pay 2%. This is a massive overreach. Mammoth, the people are still upset. When that was passed, the mayor and another council member voted against. And it's gone up, the rate, and people are still not happy. So this is a massive overreach. The law does not allow resorts to take over running the public affairs of North Lake Tahoe. This is going to have to be reviewed by the courts. The county is supposed to do this stuff, not the resort association. And by the way, the reason that people go to Reno is because everything's a whole lot cheaper. Gas, you get an $8 credit just to go there. So this whole argument of, oh, we can compete with Reno is really naive. Anyway, this is very sad. And thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Jim, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the Placer County Board of Supervisors. Mr. Chair, thank you for allowing me to speak on this. My name is Jim Phelan. I am a Tahoe City resident and business owner and operator. My family moved up here to Squaw Valley in 1960 for the Olympics. Therefore, I've watched the area grow and experienced the various challenges that we experience today. You have been presented with a proposal to create a tourism-based business assessment district in the North Tahoe region of eastern Placer County. A business district has been envisioned for quite a few years in our area and attempted several times on a smaller scale. Various business communities have tried to initiate one over the past 10, 15 years. This current TBID effort encompasses the entire North Lake Tahoe region and making it more effective than the smaller attempts in the past. This TBID allows us to approach the North Lake Tahoe community from the concept of sustainable stewardship. I would like to quote an excerpt from the Coraggio Group white paper where it says, quote, destination stewardship planning considers the full account of tourism's current and future economic, social, and environmental impacts, addressing the needs of visitors, the industry, the environment, and host communities. The establishment, end quote. The establishment of the TBID essentially doubles the financial resources available to support programs and projects that improve our destination and our communities in ways not previously attainable. For example, workforce housing. At this point, I would like to encourage the board to pass this proposal that does a lot to help maintain and sustain one of Placer County's most remarkable resources. And I would like to go on the record to say that I support the establishment of this TBID. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments, please.
Yes, good afternoon. So we have a hotel in Tahoe Vista, and frankly, I was confused by the TBID, not feeling one way or the other. So I called my neighbors who have hotels, 4 hotels. I called, and 3 of the 4 were 100% against it. The 4th one was either way, wishy-washy, or that's not the right word, could go one way or the other. So I'm not really, couldn't really form an opinion, but it kind of seemed like it was something being pushed upon us without any real input on our behalf. It seems like we have no representation here on the North Shore, Tahoe Vista. The only person on the board that I could see was Tom Turner, which I have a large doubt that he would have time to devote to working with the board. And then there's the question of the 1% versus 2%. Why would the 1%ers not vote for us to pay 2%? So I have a lot of questions and can't really agree that this seems fair without any input, say, our ability to vote on this. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Christine, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments.
Yes, thank you, and good afternoon. My name is Christine Maley-Grubel, and I'm the Executive Director of the Truckee North Tahoe Transportation Management Association. And on behalf of the Truckee North Tahoe TMA, I appreciate this opportunity to provide comments on the TBID formation and funding allocation for tourism mitigating projects. Population growth within a convenient drive distance to our region, both in California and Nevada, will add to our already challenging traffic issues in the peak seasons. Having the TBID in place with funds for tourism mitigation will provide a critical source of funds for programming to address the continued added traffic congestion to our Lake Tahoe communities during the winter and the summer high seasons. As we know from the Resort Triangle Transportation Plan that Placer County recently adopted, some of the key points of the plan focus on improving mobility for all by reducing transportation impacts on the environment, improving congestion and travel delay, promoting and enhancing transit services, and providing linkage for non-motorized travel choices. The new TBID will not only support marketing efforts for travel and tourism specific to the North Lake Tahoe area and also making it more competitive against other destinations, but also will support economic development and transportation. And with the TBID formation, fiscal year 1920 TOT tax revenues that would have been utilized to fund the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association contract could now be utilized for housing and transportation programs and projects. The TMA supports the recommendations outlined in the staff report for funding transportation mitigating projects to be implemented during this year in 2021, including the microtransit service in North Lake Tahoe and park and ride service for summer peak periods. Having both of these services available in the summer season will provide visitors with mobility options rather than driving. The pilot program for microtransit in Kings Beach, Tahoe Vista, Dollar Hill, Tahoe City, and the West Shore will offer free, on-demand, frequent shuttles transporting visitors and residents with a way to get around North Shore for shorter distances, alleviating traffic and providing riders with a car-free experience. The summer park and ride, which would be managed by the TMA likely, would be an extension of the winter program and the summer 2019 pilot program that successfully provided parking to take transit over the 4th of July holiday weekend. And this new summer service would also connect with these pilot microtransit shuttles so riders could park in Truckee, take TART to the North Shore, and then take the new shuttles to get around the North Shore during the summer. On behalf of the Truckee North Tahoe TMA, we thank Placer County and the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association staff and stakeholders for all of their efforts in the formation of the North Lake Tahoe Tourism Business Improvement District, and commend the Placer County Board of Supervisors for considering support for the new TBID. The TMA also looks forward to working with all stakeholders involved as we continue to plan and implement mobility options for both visitors and residents to reduce traffic and improve our environment and quality of life here in the Lake Tahoe region. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Kylie, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Wygant, members of the board. My name is Kylie Bigelow, Executive Director of the Tahoe City Downtown Association. The Tahoe City Downtown Association supports the approval of the North Lake Tahoe TBID. The TCDA board has been highly engaged with this process since it was first proposed to us, and we've seen the TBID evolve and become more sophisticated over the years. We are supportive of the management district plan as proposed. I've commented on the TBID before, and I'd like to reiterate why the TCDA supports this TBID. First, the TBID provides local control of funds raised. It frees up $4.1 million of TOT dollars for workforce housing and transportation initiatives across the region. The TBID addresses issues related to tourism mitigation like trash and traffic. And lastly, it continues the efforts of NLTRA and the business associations with the united voice. The TBID is a great opportunity for our community, and we're excited to be part of this positive change. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Keith, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments.
Good afternoon. My name is Keith Fountain. I chaired the Squaw Valley Alpine Meadows Micromass Transit District Steering Committee, which led to the formation of our TBID in 2018, and in turn, the Squaw Alpine Transit Company, which I chair. SATCO, as we call it, is responsible for the successful Mountaineer microtransit service in Squaw and Alpine. In its first 2 winter seasons, we transported over 150,000 passengers. An estimated 12,000 vehicles were taken off the road, and nearly 19,000 vehicle miles traveled were avoided. Placer County's Resort Triangle Transportation Plan makes 14 mentions of Mountaineer and proposes to incorporate much of what SATCO has learned. We're very excited about all that. We strongly support the formation of the North Lake Tahoe TBID and the board's agreement with the NLTRA to direct freed up TOT to transit projects in our region. This summer is potentially an ideal time to test and demonstrate an interconnect of 2 microtransit services. Since 2019, SATCO has been discussing a pilot of Squaw Valley Tahoe City evening service with County Executive Office. Given your consideration of funding Tahoe Connect, microtransit service along the lake, with this year's TOT fund balance, there is a unique opportunity to pilot a Squaw Valley Tahoe City weekend evening service this summer through an interconnection with Mountaineer. We have had preliminary discussions with Downtowner and the NLTRA board, and they are supporting this idea at this point. In the coming days and weeks, we at SATCO, working with Downtowner and county staff and NLTRA, will work towards securing some of those funds to come back to you with a formal proposal. The very exciting element of this is these additional funds for transit, and we hope we can leverage a successful program at Squaw Alpine and show how it can be integrated with a similar program around the lake so people can truly come to our region and park their car and get around effectively. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and happy to answer any questions if there might be some. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any questions.
Judy, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments.
Thanks, Megan. Good afternoon, supervisors. My name is Judy Friedman. I wear a lot of hats in the community, but today I'm speaking to you as a longtime resident and business owner in Tahoe City. I've spent the past several months talking with numerous business owners, some of whom supported and some of whom did not support the TBID, and I'm addressing you today in support of the North Lake Tahoe TBID. For years, we've depended solely on the lodging community to provide funds through TOT for trails, transit, infrastructure, and other projects that, of course, make the area attractive to visitors, but also improve the quality of life for those of us who live here. The TBID provides more equity as the costs are shared among a broader range of businesses. It also captures the use of day visitors, which have become a significant segment of our guests. There have been questions about the financial burden, which I acknowledge, but if my calculations are correct, 1% of a $50 bill is 50 cents. For me, that's an investment in my community. The CEO's office, thanks to Todd Leopold and a lot of hard work from Aaron Casey, is working more closely with the community than I've seen in years to develop creative ways to use these dollars, as evidenced by Casey's presentation of the proposed tourism mitigation activities budget. As the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association and our business associations define their new roles, we're fortunate to have Jeff Hentz at the helm. I believe he is the right person in the right place at the right time to help guide this transition. As Supervisor Gustafson has reminded me over the years, and as has been evidenced by the short-term rental ordinance, we have to start somewhere, and then we continually improve the process as we learn more. I'm reminded of the adage, don't let the perfect get in the way of the good.
I urge you to support the North Lake Tahoe T-bid. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Placer County Board of Supervisors, and thank you for the opportunity to offer my support for the passage of the North Lake Tahoe T-bid. Once again, Dan Tester. I sit on the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association Board of Directors. I am also one of the principals of Granite Peak Management. We're now Pine Meadows-based property and rental management company. My company employs dozens of area residents, and I am a 30-year member of this community. And I'm going to summarize why I encourage you to approve the final passage of the T-bid. There is a $200 million funding gap in the North Lake Tahoe region to address critical infrastructure issues, and this figure doesn't even include workforce housing. The 2015 North Lake Tahoe Tourism Master Plan identified this T-bid as the most equitable way to close this funding gap. As you heard before, there are currently 109 T-bids in California. The T-bid is a commonly used and proven funding model in California that many of our direct tourism business competitors have used successfully, and I know we will as well. The North Lake Tahoe T-bid is an equitable way to assess all of its visitors. And as Aaron alluded to, in a 2016 study, 42% of our visitors are only here for the day. And in order for those travelers to contribute to our local infrastructure needs, a broader range of industries needs to be assessed. And this is why a small assessment on retail, outdoor activities, and restaurants is needed. As an important side note, as you also saw, our combined sales tax and T-bid and TOT rates would still be lower than the neighboring communities of Truckee and South Lake Tahoe. An important point, the T-bid establishes local control of the funds it generates. This local control and independence is really a key point for the North Lake Tahoe community. We're primarily a tourism-based economy, and the impacts have become magnified over time, particularly in the last year. The T-bid provides extra funding to address these impacts. This includes enhanced public transit operations, trash mitigation, visitor education, and other mitigating activities. And additionally, redirected TOT funds will finance initiatives that increase workforce housing, improve area traffic circulation and mitigate congestion issues, expand public trails and bike paths and maintain them year-round for members of our community and our guests. The T-bid funds promotion of the North Lake Tahoe destination and maintains its competitive position responsibly amongst other mountain travel and tourism destinations in California and the West. And the Resort Association has been a champion of responsible travel and destination stewardship during this COVID crisis. I would say those actions and that messaging will continue through the implementation of the T-bid. So again, I encourage you to approve the T-bid. It provides locally controlled and reasonably assessed critical funding to manage and mitigate the impacts of tourism in North Lake Tahoe for years to come. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Alex, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments.
Hi, members of the board. Alex Morolatos, owner and manager of the Morolatos Lakeshore Resort in Tahoe Vista. I think you've heard some extremely solid testimony on the level of collaboration or the results of a high degree of collaboration between our community and our Placer County staff that has worked so diligently to develop and present this T-bid to you for approval. And I'm here to enthusiastically encourage you to approve it. And I don't need to add more of the details that you already have in front of you. I did want to give you, a little color or background in the sense that from 2005 to 2014, I sat on the board of the directors of the Resort Association, and I've also spent 4 years on the TMA and 2 years on the infrastructure committee. all impacted by the unprecedented amount of TOT that this community has received from this board. That's the 60%, which is, and when I was on the board, we learned through our research, one of the highest amount of TOT pushed back into the tourism community from any public sector entity. And I think it's a testament to our relationship and our ability to collaborate well with you that we stand here today. When I was on the board, the TOT funding that we received was constantly at battle as to the level and appropriate types of funding, whether it be infrastructure, transportation, or marketing. You gave us all those arguments. We hashed out all those arguments. We often had contentious arguments with you as to what were the right priorities. And here we stand, still with pressure to diversify the funding that we need to accomplish our master plan goals that have driven our decisions. We need to diversify the funding for workforce housing, for improved communication and business development, as well as the enormous pressure on additional transportation and infrastructure needs to meet the demand and impact of, in particular, the day visitors, which in the COVID environment was clearly a force to be reckoned with. The rest, you have a great plan in front of you. You have great people working for you to execute. And to those who oppose, I encourage all to get engaged, because the comments that I've heard scream of a lack of involvement and a lack of understanding of the road, the complex road that we have been on and that we are on today. And we have these challenges that we must meet together, collaborating as we have done. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
Alyssa, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Good afternoon. My name is Alyssa Riley, and I'm the Executive Director for the North Tahoe Business Association. NTBA would like to speak today about specific aspects that TBID will bring to our community and what we hope to see come from it. The local control of funding that is locally generated. One of the biggest benefits that the TBID will bring to the North Lake Tahoe region. We appreciate the Board of Supervisors' support and approval of the $4.1 million annually that will be dedicated to stay in Eastern Placer County. That additional funding, plus the money projected to be generated from the TBID, will bring added support for the growing needs of our business and local community members, specifically transportation needs and projects, supporting our local employers and employees with affordable workforce housing, which is a very real and big need, especially within NTBA's district, and to mitigating tourism impacts that are ever growing with increased annual tourism. We are looking forward to having the opportunity to have NTBA and representatives of our business community and district to have a seat at the table and governing board for the TBID, which will allow us to fully represent Kings Beach, Tahoe Vista, and NTBA's entire district, businesses, and residents. Overall, and most importantly, the money generated here not only stays here, but we are giving our businesses the authority to dictate how that money is allocated and spent based on current local needs. We understand and wholeheartedly respect all the concerns stated today. There is a 5-year initial term for the TBID, and during that time, this will allow for us all to see what the TBID can do, the positive changes it can bring and generate for our North Lake Tahoe community. It's worth seeing what comes from having local management and control of funds that are generated here and dedicated to stay here. We want to thank you all for your time and consideration and hearing our voice and the voice of all of our community members today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Samir, go ahead and unmute your mic and give your comments.
Good afternoon, Samir Tuma, Chair of the Board of the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association, and also owner and operator of several lodging properties, and hopefully soon to be another lodging property in Tahoe City, the Tahoe City Lodge. So I speak to this from both the side of the group that is the proponent of this, as well as somebody who will be paying these assessments going forward. I think, and I'll just address a few comments because I think a lot of stuff has been covered, and just a few points I wanted to emphasize. At the beginning of this process, there was a question about should we go forward with a TBID or should we go forward with TOT? And I'll go back to Erin Casey's presentation when she talked about the percentages of people that supported the TOT, and it was likely to pass. The reason that the TBID was selected was because what we heard from the community was a desire to control those dollars. TOT dollars do go into the general fund and can be used by the county in a number of different ways. TBID dollars have to stay local. And I want to commend this board for taking what, as far as I can tell, is the unprecedented move of, in addition to this, allowing the local community to have a very significant say-so in the $4.1 million of TOT that's freed up. So really, by doing this, this board is giving the local community tremendous level of control, probably unprecedented in California. To the notion that this process was somehow rushed, obviously in the video gone bad, but the content was there from Erin's presentation. This has been going on for quite some time, and I will say personally that between myself, Jeffrey Hentz, the executive director of the NTBA and the TCDA, we literally spoke to hundreds of businesses over thousands of hours of conversation. And this has been evolving for quite some time. In fact, we did postpone this twice. We were originally shooting to have this done last year, and COVID derailed that. But when we came back, we were looking at requesting this approval earlier, so that we would implement this in the April-May timeframe. But we also heard, some desire to put it out until July to give the businesses an opportunity. So we've really given multiple extensions and put it out several times so that the community would have the opportunity to participate in the discussions and the businesses would be prepared to move forward. And finally, to several of the people who spoke, Mr. Stockman and also the owner of the Tahoe Vista property, I would extend a welcome invitation anytime to have a conversation with you folks. As a fellow operator and owner of lodging properties, we got a lot of perspective on how these things will impact positively our businesses, both from a revenue perspective as well as an EBITDA and bottom line perspective. So thank you very much for your time. I encourage you to move forward today, and let's get this implemented and start collecting in July for the community's sake. Thank you.
Thank you. No further comments. So that I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board, and any additional comments from staff and or questions from board members before we get going to, so Cindy and then Bonnie.
I had some questions I think staff can address. First off, we had a question regarding the records on the petitions or the business list, and is that available? Is that typically available? What's the process?
Yes, we do have a list of the businesses. I also asked my staff to scan all of the signed petitions, which we have done and can make available to anyone who would like to see those.
Is it typically released, or Karen, maybe you can address this?
there's no requirement under the TBID law that the list be posted prior to starting this proceeding. Obviously, the clerk received the petitions, and that's what started this process. But these are public records and certainly can be released.
Okay, I'd like to see that done, just, I mean, so there's absolute transparency there.
And can I just follow up on that?
Yeah.
That was my question. So what was the percentage, or what was the result?
The result was less than 1% opposition.
Protest.
Protest.
Thank you.
Okay. Then the timeline for the TOT renewal has certainly been a driving factor in the discussions we've had in the past, and I just wanted you to articulate that again. Aaron, what is our timing? When does our current 10% expire?
Yep.
The extra 2%?
Absolutely. Our existing 2%, the additional 2% on top of the countywide 8%, does sunset in September of 2022. So we will be working with the community, business leaders, Resort Association, and many others to work toward extending that 2% beyond 2022. I do want to also mention, as part of the survey that I've referenced already, we did ask voters if they would be willing to support the extension of that 2% and whether they'd be interested in extending it for another 10-year period or in perpetuity. And there was a high percentage of support for extending that 2% in perpetuity. So a lot of support to move forward with that, but that is the timeline we're looking at and efforts that will be taken moving forward.
So as I know, and yes, this is a leading question to my people that don't agree, because I was involved with the Resort Association before taking this job, what would be the timing then to go, if we were considering an increase on TOT? If the TBID didn't pass, the county was headed toward an increase of some amount, 2 or 4%, just on lodging. And the timing for that, if it expires in September of 2022, when would the timing be that we would be?
We would have moved forward with that this year.
Okay, so it would have been in 2021.
That's correct.
And that's part of the timing issue that I know some have expressed concern about, but not understanding that that tax expires and we have to do a campaign.
That's right.
And we have to go out to the voters for that renewal.
That's right. So it would have been the renewal.
It's a sunset, exactly.
Correct. And I'd also add that we had contemplated, as one of the callers mentioned, an increase on top of that, which
right,
we
that's
would have
what I was
pursued.
Just saying.
So the extension of the existing 2% and then an increase on top of that, anywhere between 2 and 4%. And that would have been all on lodging. So that would include short-term rental, vacation rental properties that would also be paying that higher percentage. As a result of the TBID, they won't have to pay that high percentage. So for example, to generate the amount of revenue the TBID would generate, we would need to increase TOT by between 4 and 5%, above and beyond the existing TOT rate, which is significant. And it would have all been placed on lodging, which is why it would have needed to increase by that percentage. Because we're spreading it across multiple business types, the percentage can be lower for those businesses, for the lodging sector specifically.
Okay, and then we've had a lot of concern about the lakeside paying an extra 1% in lodging. Will any of those dollars be spent in the resort valleys?
The additional dollars?
The additional 1%?
No, those dollars are dedicated to the lakeside, and there will be a committee that will work to ensure that those funds are spent as intended within the basin itself and for the specific areas of focus that are outlined in the management district plan. This was important for businesses in the basin so that they can be competitive, more competitive, with some of the surrounding areas. As I've mentioned to you in previous presentations, lodging, we haven't seen any new lodging in the basin for quite some time. Meanwhile, in our resort areas and in the town of Truckee, we have seen new lodging. And so the lakeside businesses want to be able to remain competitive, and so it's important to them to have this additional revenue to satisfy that, and then this governance structure will support their oversight of those funds to ensure they're spent as they should be in the basin itself.
So where they're generated, they'll be spent.
Correct.
And then there was discussion on Mammoth and some opposition in Mammoth. My understanding is Mammoth just renewed.
Yes.
They had done I don't know if they're on their second or third renewal of their T-bid. Do you know?
I don't know if they're on their second or third, but I do know they did renew it for a 10-year period. So
and that would have been another majority.
Correct. They have to meet the same standard as they did the first time it was passed, so they had to have a 50 plus 1% vote. The same will occur here. So after a 5-year period, businesses will vote again, and the same thresholds and requirements will have to be met in order for the T-bid to pass at that point in time. So while there may not be consensus in Mammoth, there is a majority of support for that T-bid, even after a 5-year period of it being implemented. Otherwise, it would not have passed for that second period or that 10-year term.
And then there was one other comment that was made that TART is free, and I believe our TART system is free right now based on allocations, discretionary allocations that the Resort Association supported, but the Board of Supervisors approved.
Correct.
It is not guaranteed in perpetuity. With this program, we're trying to get there, correct?
That is right. And so free transit service, when we brought that forward to your board, it was intended to be a pilot, and it was important for us to identify a funding source to maintain that service as a free service into the future. The T-bid revenues and the freed up TOT will do that to further support free transit in the future.
Okay, those are my only questions. I obviously have comments.
I don't see any other questions at this point, but I'll just point out that in order to move forward and implement this T-bid concept that we've been discussing for quite some time now, we have to approve the revisions to the North Lake Tahoe Tourism Business Improvement District Management District Plan. We have to approve the revisions to the multi-year agreement with the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association. We have to approve the allocation of $1,105,000 1920 transient occupancy tax fund balance to the tourism mitigation projects and services as recommended by the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Before you do all that, you need to ask the clerk to declare the results of the majority protest proceedings.
Megan, would you declare?
There was not a majority protest received.
Thank you. So with that, Cindy.
I definitely want to show my support and make the motion, but I wanted to make a couple comments because I think your history was great, Aaron, but it doesn't go back far enough. So, and that's what happens when you get old. You can go back further. So, yes, the Resort Association was formed in 1995, but prior to that, the Board of Supervisors for many decades had supported the Chamber of Commerce as well as the Visitors and Convention Bureau with funding contracts. And it was in 1995 those two organizations merged with a concept of a tourism master plan that the county CEO at the time had said, if you go raise your TOT and put together this organization, then I will give you the opportunity as the Resort Association to weigh in on the extra 2% being spent on infrastructure projects, capital projects in the region. And in my previous life of just being a volunteer and not sitting up here getting paid to do things, I did a lot of volunteer work as well as paid work for the PUD, looking at state and federal funding to match the TOT, to garner TOT, worked to form nonprofits that raised money for our community. And so, yeah, I'm passionate about raising money to solve our own problems. And I think that just like you're doing now, and I want to just commend the business community, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and saying, if we want something, then we need to go raise the money for it. That's what we want to empower. We as government can't do everything. But we as a team of community members and nonprofits, as well as our business community, together we can make things happen, really incredible things. And I think that's why you're so excited, why I am definitely passionate. And I would say the other thing is I really believe in this equity. The lodging community by itself should not have had to fund so many things for our community for all these years. And have our business associations going out, and they do go out and raise money for flower baskets and for the fireworks and for many of the things and amenities that certain businesses contribute to, but many don't. And this really spreads that equity that everybody's helping pay in to make the community better. and to building into our destination some controls and mechanisms to better serve the visitors and the community. There's not one person I see on the bike trail not enjoying the bike trail, and yet millions of dollars came from lodging community and state and federal grants to make those bike trails happen. And so whether it's beaches, bike trails, free transit service, they've all required a tremendous amount of resources. So saying all that, yes, I'm passionate about this and believe in helping communities help themselves, and this is exactly what you've done. And congratulations, and I'm happy to make the motions as shown in our...
So we need.
Oh, we have to go through four?
Three
I have to
motions
make-
and three roll call votes.
Okay, 3 motions. So I will move that we approve the revisions to the North Lake Tahoe Tourism Business Improvement District Management District Plan.
I'll second. I'll second.
Motion Gustafson, second Gore. And I just want to add, Cindy, before we vote on these, want to thank staff for some great work and insights and outreach to the community. Seen some huge effort in that regard, and it's appreciated for all the years that we've been working together. And I've been on this journey as it relates to the east side of the county. You know, it's been interesting, it's challenging, it's different than down here. And I think we've had some great success to point to, and there's been a continuum of different strategies, methods, and this to me is a very innovative addition to that bag of tricks or tools in our toolbox. So very much looking forward to that, and I particularly want to commend you, Cindy, on your vision and your leadership on bringing this forward. So with that, roll call, please.
Gore? Aye. Holmes? Aye. Jones?
Aye.
Gustafson?
Aye.
Wygant?
Yes.
And I'll make a motion to approve the revisions to a multi-year agreement with the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association that were originally approved by our board on January 2020.
I'll second.
Motion Gustafson, second Gore. All roll call, please.
Gore?
Aye.
Holmes? Aye. Jones?
Aye.
Gustafson?
Aye.
Wygant?
Yes.
And with that, I'll move approval to allocate $1,105,000 in fiscal year 2019-20 transient occupancy tax fund balance to tourism mitigating projects and services as recommended by the North Lake Tahoe Resort Association Board of Directors.
I'll second.
Motion Gustafson, second Gore. Roll call, please.
Gore?
Aye.
Holmes? Jones?
Aye.
Gustafson?
Aye.
Wygant?
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
We missed one. If we can go to number 1.
Resolution.
We need a motion to adopt the resolution to form the North Lake Tahoe Tourism Business Improvement District and to approve the levy of assessments.
Okay.
I
So
got
moved.
to hold the final hearing or public hearing part.
I thought that
Thank
was
you.
just
Yeah.
the public hearing.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes, I
Okay.
move approval.
I'll second.
Motion Gustafson, second Gore. Roll call, please.
Gore?
Aye.
Holmes? Jones?
Aye.
Gustafson?
Aye.
Wygant?
Yes. We're good.
Did it. Thank
So with that,
you.
thanks again, and we
Thanks.
are adjourning for the day. Thank
All
you.
right.